was a immediately fatal wound. Another officer arriving on the scene came to assist Officer Snyder on the call. He saw this happening right when Officer Snyder was shot. He engaged the suspect. That suspect, in fact, was by himself in that car, and he has been shot several times. He remains in an area hospital in critical condition. To the shooting, that was probably the person who originally called the police department for this. We did recover the suspect's weapon on the scene. There is certainly more to this investigation that is going on. I would like to commend the Melville firefighters who transported Officer Snyder. They did a great job trying to resuscitate him. I would like to commend the staff of St. Anthony's Hospital who worked diligently on Officer Snyder for more than an hour this morning. So with that, again, he leaves behind a wife, a young son, 33-year-old police officer. I'm tremendously proud of these police officers. You know that. I'm proud of what they do. They work in an incredibly difficult environment on an ideal day. And at times, as we have seen, it is an environment that can be incredibly dangerous. So our thoughts and prayers certainly go out first and foremost to Blake Snyder's family, but certainly the police officers that he worked with. And I would be happy to take as many questions as I think I can answer at this early point in the investigation. You know, you never know what goes on in the mind of a suspect. I would say this, it has characteristics of that. I've seen that in my career before. You know, you walk up to a car, you're just beginning to engage somebody. There isn't much that has really happened yet, and within moments, you're shot. You know, just within a few seconds, you're shot. So, you know, I certainly wouldn't discount the fact that this is an ambush. I feel like this officer acted professionally. He did everything he was trained and he was supposed to do, as far as I know. Yet that suspect made a decision. I'm sorry that it worked out the way it is. You know that.
Chief, Officer Snyder was by himself responding to this call, and there was immediate backup. Can you take us through that a little bit again?
Yeah, so on a disturbance call, what's going to happen is there's always going to be two officers that are dispatched to the call. So, in fact, that happened. The call came in at 5:04. It was really just 2 or 3 minutes later, I believe, that when Officer Snyder was shot. So both officers were very close together on the scene, but they were not riding together. But it is protocol, 2 officers respond. In fact, that's what they did this time.
Had the suspect assaulted someone inside that home?
There was a disturbance because he was allegedly banging on the door and wanted in, and I don't know, he must have had some sort of a relationship with that family. They were reluctant to let him in, and they called the police.
Chief, does the suspect have a criminal record of any kind that you know of?
You know, he's 18 years old, so there's not a tremendous amount of time to develop a criminal record. I do know he has a felony narcotics case. In fact, I know that Officer Snyder is part of that case. I'm not drawing a line here. I'm just saying that he was involved in that case also. Beyond that, it's hard to comment.
Is that a problematic neighborhood? Is it typically quiet?
No, I think it is typically quiet. I think it's a very safe neighborhood, and but that you never can discount, you know, what is going to happen at any given moment in time anywhere. I mean, that's just the nature of what we do.
Have they had other calls to that house?
Well, you know, it's kind of 2 houses. We're talking about where the suspect lives, or are we talking about the house that we originally, or that Officer Snyder was headed to this evening for the disturbance? I suspect we probably have not had other calls to that house. And certainly one of the things we're going to find out in the investigation is how many calls we have had to the suspect's house. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, I would expect that the issuance of warrants are imminent in this case.
What can you tell us about Officer Snyder as a person, as a man?
Great guy. You know, I think the last time I saw him was either at the Afton Days Parade a Saturday ago, or when we were doing some standby on some preparation for Ferguson or the debates or something like that. So, you know, I talked to, this is his commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Troy Doyle, and of course I have my chief of detectives, Kenny Gregory with me, but, I talked to his captain and I asked Colonel Doyle the same thing. I said, I know him, I've shook his hand and I've chatted with him a bunch of times, but, what can you guys tell me about him? And, dedicated, very good police officer, 33 years old, which meant that he came into this field at 28 years old. That's a little late, you know what I mean? So, he made his mind up to come into law enforcement, in his late 20s versus his early 20s. Now, I wouldn't have to know Officer Snyder to tell you that he's tremendously dedicated, that he's an outstanding police officer, and that if you ask him why he's a police officer, he would tell you without hesitation, because I want to help people. So that's what I do know about Officer Snyder.
Have you spoken to his family?
I have. They're very upset, as you might imagine.
Chief, how's the other officer, the second one on the scene, how's he doing?
I had an opportunity to chat with him about 2 minutes before I walked into this room. Told him I was proud of him, I was glad he was okay. Told him that it was fortunate that he was there with Officer Snyder. So,
You said that you believe that Officer Snyder was giving commands. Is that from the other officer, from the witness on the scene? How did you guys come to that point?
yeah, I get briefed on these cases. I believe that information came from the assist officer who was rolling.